It is 5 o'clock somewhere, and you've tuned into Season 2, Episode 7 of BRC. For those of you who'd like to watch this episode, I highly recommend it. We're live and in person on the Emerald Isle. You can view Season 2 on our website, YouTube, and Spotify. Today in our Tales from the Still segment, Jack and Stephen Teeling take me on a tour of their distillery before we taste through their core expressions. Dublin used to be a large whiskey-producing city, but as we discovered in Season 1, Episode 1, the fall of Irish whiskey began about a century ago, and all the Dublin-based whiskey makers were all but forgotten. It wasn't until recently when distilleries started making a comeback on the island, and in 2015, brothers Jack and Stephen Teeling brought the first whiskey distillery back to the capital city, and I, for one, needed to check it out. Upon arrival, I met the brothers for a private tour of the distillery. One of the first things they showed me was a glass case which holds a Lego version of the building. And can you buy this in the store right now?
No. So we did the special for this was the 6th for 7th birthday. We actually got 100 small mini versions done that we gift these people. Yeah.
Wow.
But it's so special you can't. We're not selling it.
Yeah, no, it's great. From there, we walked into the main part of the distillery where the whiskey production begins. As we walked in, we were faced with a split-level room in front of us. The brothers pointed out that they didn't want to hide all the pipework so visitors could see the integral parts of the distilling process.
So to actually see what a modern distillery is, all the pipework, all the stuff that's...
I think the designers, no, hide it. We're like, no, the coolest things about going to some distilleries is actually seeing real stuff. And things go wrong, things break.
Yeah.
I think the interesting part was that we were building the distillery knowing we were going to let people in. So you weren't trying to retrofit a visitor experience to a working distillery, which is an absolute nightmare. I've tried to do it before.
Yeah.
So again, we made it very functional, but also that we could make whiskey and they could see all the elements.
The Teelings walked me up to the next level where I could see the fermentation tanks and explained how their quote-unquote porridge is made.
It takes around 15 minutes, creates a porridge material, so it's literally the soaking chamber is there, and so it won't be dry, so there's no explosion risk. You can actually be having thirst while it's doing it. It's not that noisy. It is a bit noisy, but...
As we continued on, they showed me the washbacks and talked about the process and the yeast that they use.
Again, I thought they were milling in, but they were milling in slightly later, and highly efficient, quick, like 50,000 litres of hot water, soaks through, put it in the wash, a wort, and he used a combination of the old and the new. So it will spend 24 hours in our Oregon Pine washbacks, and the reason why we add these, well, one is again the mixture of the old and new, but also because of the bacteria that naturally will be in the wood will create some lactic acids and create a little bit of flavour. The only reason why we do it for 24 hours is because there's much higher losses by using this because you can't drain it efficiently. So we spend 24 hours and then another 48 hours stainless steel.
It's so brilliant to illustrate it to people to see this is where I suppose the magic starts to happen.
Yeah. And we use it's a cocktail of different yeasts. We use traditional distillers yeast, but also white wine yeasts because we're trying to this is where you add in the flavour. So we're trying to cram as much flavour in, and we want to create a spirit that is clean but has a lot of stone fruit character. It ties into what we want to have as our signature taste profile of what Teeling whiskey is. And we played around with different variations, but it's just that combination of 1/3 white wine, 2/3 distillers yeast. It's efficient, but also produces the best flavour.
Now it was time to meet the girls behind the magic: Alison, Natalie, and Rebecca.
Made in Italy by a company called Frilly, mainly a grappa still manufacturer. When we went to them in 2013, they were only starting getting into whiskey distillation at this stage, and they'd never made pot stills this size. But my opinion is, it's copper. They know what they're doing. They should be able to do it. And we had our designs. So we had designs that we wanted to replicate based off, the type of pot stills, the big pot stills that they had at the time. So big base, strong shoulders.
Well, they all have names.
Yeah, and they came in and it's a foresight, quite functional looking, and they do their job, and they're obviously quite efficient, but the Italian stills, a little bit more curvature, and they were like, when they came in, it was like, oh, look after the three girls, they're like my children, and I have three daughters, and the name stuck.
Nice.
So Alison, Natalie, and Rebecca, named after my three children, it's again just
So, yeah,
it is exactly. So it's funny. They'll be all in there. They're all lazy. None of them are working at the moment. Like, they wake up, get out of bed. There's no lions and whiskey distillation. But no, it's
go man, you're still.
yeah. Well, they do. They ask us like, oh, well, who was working today? It's like, but it's been great over the last 7 years to get pictures of my kids as they get older against their pot stills. It's just it gives them some ownership of what's going on. And at that time, Stephen didn't have any kids. When we opened in 2015, but since then he's had 2 daughters as well.
Yeah, so 5 ladies.
Yeah, well, I actually got I got a custom made miniature version of the stills because we couldn't fit any more stills in.
Right.
But Stephen,
Could you imagine my cousins have a still and I have a miniature still? Like,
I was just thought it was a nice thing to
Yeah,
do.
right.
It's like, but that
Yeah,
thing going,
right.
it's like,
But
hey,
you can use yours at home.
yeah, exactly.
Use yours at
I
home.
thought it was a lovely gesture that didn't go well at all.
Here's a like pretend still. For
So
your,
you'll see that we
If it
have
works,
something.
it works.
We have something up there to let's say
yeah, I think that.
compensate for.
Yeah, no, we actually put down some casks for when the girls were born. So they've got like some casks for each day that they were born. So
that's cool.
It's quite nice. Their cousins have made the whiskey that's maturing. We're just going to try and keep them away from drinking it till they're 21.
Oh, yeah.
Just before we were about to move on to the area where Stephen's daughter's casks are maturing, we ran into master distiller Alex Chasko for a quick catch-up. Alex had just gotten back from New York City, only to find a leak and a relatively new piece of equipment they were hoping to fix by the end of the day.
You'd love a little impromptu interview, would you?
Right? Yeah. Great. Thanks.
After our chat with Alex, Jack and Stephen took us to the rest of the visitor center. The first stop was a maturation education area where they showed guests how whiskey matures. Also in this room is where they're maturing Stephen's daughter's barrels under tight lock and key.
We went a very long time, 100 years in here as well.
Nice.
When we did the launch. And then,
Is there still stuff there?
yeah, there is. Yeah. We're going on now 7 years. Yeah. So, again, March 2015. Yeah,
Key.
the big lock.
Someone's got a key. I don't seem to have it. So here it's like very versatile. You can move things around and.
We finished the main part of the tour in an open spaced room with lots of seating and writing on the walls. The brothers explained how the writing on the walls began organically, but instead of covering up the signatures, they began to encourage people to leave their mark.
Yeah, well, we started over there, fill up quite quickly. Like you said, people put up there, and we try and keep it some locations that.
We started with a group of bartenders, and then out of nowhere, the guy got up on a stool and slid the roof, and we're like, then we're like, you know what, that's actually pretty cool. They wanted to leave their mark, and then it just went from there.
After leaving our mark, we took a stroll through the gift shop where we got to pour our own distillery-only expression into a bottle and label it. Now that the tour is over, the Teelings escorted us upstairs to the quote-unquote finishing room, where we got to sit down and taste through the core expressions.
So what do you guys do up here?
It's the finishing room. We finish people up here. No, it's just again on busier weekends we'd open up here as a bar. We do private events up here and so forth.
When we come back, the Teeling brothers will explain why each expression is uniquely Irish. Stay with us. Like what you've seen on BRC? Want to see more? Experience more? And maybe even taste more? Then head over to our Ko-fi site and become a member of the Barrel Room Parlor. By choosing the copper level membership, you'll have exclusive access to videos related to topics discussed on the podcast and blog posts for members only. As an Amber member level, you'll enjoy everything from our copper level as well as various spin-off series including The Cutting Room Floor and Kindred Spirits. In addition, the Amber membership includes exclusive discounts to live in-person events. To join, visit www.barrelroomchronicles.com and click on Become a Member in the navigation bar. Or go straight to our Ko-fi site at ko-fi.com/BRC and click on the membership link. Once you've joined, you'll have access to everything your chosen level has to offer. You'll even be able to participate with the show by commenting on videos and other posts. Don't wait. Sign up today for exclusive content and event discounts in the Barrel Room Parlor. Well, hello, gentlemen. How are you today?
We're good.
Good.
Well.
It's so great to actually get to meet you in person instead of via phone with our first interview, which we did at Spirits of Whiskey year and a half ago or whatever it was.
Yeah, well, delighted to get you into the distillery after, a long time.
Yeah.
With a whole host of whiskies in front of us.
I know. Okay. So what do we have before us, gentlemen?
So this is our unconventional collection. It's I suppose our Teeling family of expressions that covers nearly every style that you could possibly have of Irish whiskey, ranging from our small batch all the way up to peated single malt and everything in between. So hopefully there's something in the range that would cater for any whiskey drinker in terms of what they like, be it American corn forward whiskies to smokier styles associated with mezcal to Islay single malts. So we're trying to drive the breadth and choice that's available from Irish whiskey, and I suppose the whiskies represent that.
Okay.
Yeah, and you saw on the distillery when we were walking through that the ability for us to do different grains as well. So peated malt, unmalted barley, single malt, crystal rye, all sorts of different things and innovations. But I think the key to all of these is we've always looked at what we felt was potentially missing within Irish whiskey and how we can add. And, a lot of these now are 92 proof, non-chill filtered, and we've always found a way to hopefully use barrel influence to our advantage as well. So a lot of these whiskies had never really been attempted before within Irish whiskey. So hopefully we've led the way and put a path down for other people to do interesting things within the category.
Great. So the last time we had you on the show, you had just come out with Black Pits.
Yes.
So since then, are any of these new?
Well,
Are all of them new?
Well, there are core expressions. We've had linear extensions of each style in the US and in Europe, but this is our kind of core range. The one that you referenced at the start with the Wonders of Wood, which is a linear extension of what we're trying to do with the single pot still category. So I suppose our core widely available range is what you see in front of us.
Okay.
And there will be limited edition expressions of different variances, taking unique aspects of each of the styles of whiskies forward. So be it single malt, be it peated single malt, be it even blends. We've done lots of different
Even aged grains.
Yeah, different things within that. But hopefully, if you go into a good whiskey bar, you go into a good liquor store, hopefully we'll be there.
Yeah, the Wonders of Wood is our first new expression within single pot still outside of the core release, and I think it's a really interesting concept that we're looking at utilizing some of the flexibility within Irish whiskey to use all these different types of woods. So that one was the chinkapin, which again,
I love that word. It's just so adorable.
yeah, and I think it's probably one of those ones that I suppose we've gone down a more traditional route in terms of using 50-50 malted and unmalted barley in terms of what a single pot still is. But then now fully maturing it in these virgin oaks has given us an ability to dial up some of the flavors, and again, offering whiskey drinkers a new expression within a category that's been quite limited for a long time,
Right.
And a higher proof as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, what are we going to taste first?
Well, that's what you're here for. Let's have a taste of whiskey. So we're going to start off with our very first release that we had, and that's our Teeling small batch.
Yes.
So
we go
right
drive it left to right. Yeah.
Yeah. So this
I'm going to
is
start with peated malt and talk to you about a blend.
so this is our our interpretation of how to evolve the taste profile that people associate with Irish whiskey and the bigger brands of Irish whiskey, but to bring a lot of the nuances and the learnings from how people have treated single malts to a blended category. And my view is that if you treat a blend with respect, you use good barrels, and you choose to bottle at different strengths, you can actually create something that's quite interesting and has some backbone and that people can enjoy, and that's what we did with the small batch. So we took all that what we liked around whiskies and applied it to blends, and it consists of grain and malt whiskey that have already been aged for full maturation in bourbon barrels. We then blend it, and then we recask it in bourbon or rum barrels. Forgetting. That's even before I start drinking.
That was your first problem.
Yeah.
Drinking without drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we leave it in there for 12 months plus, and then we hand select it. We bottle in small batches at 46%, 92 proof, non-chill filtered, to capture all the natural flavors that could be there. And what you get is this combination of the rum influence on the basis of the vanillins, the fruit notes that are actually there, and it layers on top this extra layer of spice and dried fruit, in particular raisin character, that works very well with the underlying character from the whiskey.
And you can see even in the glass,
it's got great legs, yeah.
It's non-chill
I was gonna
filtered,
say, it
so
must
all
be
of the
non-chilled
fatty
filters,
acids
let's
still
see.
in there. And I think back in 10 years ago, no one had ever non-chill filtered or bottled at a higher strength for an Irish blend. And I think the way in which he approached it is what we felt potentially could add. So more flavor with the rum barrels, higher proof to allow non-chill filtering, and 2 to 3 points of difference that just didn't exist really within the Irish category at the time.
So yeah, Irish whiskey, in particular in the US at that stage, and in a way to now was very much shot at the bar, not necessarily in cocktails, nearly like a gateway kind of whiskey for people to get into whiskey overall, and we felt there was a gap for something that was more of a sipping whiskey that had a little bit more backbone, that can stand up in cocktails, could be used as an ingredient by mixologists and so forth, and that's how we came about doing it. And we decided to start with what people already associate with Irish whiskey. We didn't want to go too obscure. Our first release, and this was back in 2012, so this was 10 years ago. So obviously the category's evolved since then, and there's more choice, but when we started, there was really this kind of white space we felt to connect the standard Irish whiskey and cater for premium spirit consumers, whiskey drinkers that just wanted something a little bit more, but that still retained what's interesting about Irish whiskey, what makes it different.
Right.
And I think the interesting thing for us was that there was nobody really catering for that consumer who was maybe ready to move on in their journey within Irish whiskey. And we're seeing probably a lot of people maybe gravitate towards what was happening in American whiskey, or even let's say single malts. And it was kind of like, where is that next stage within Irish whiskey? So the small batch was born and launched all around the world 2013, and would be our biggest selling product globally, and has been really, for us, probably where we've seen the biggest interest when people are looking to probably expand their horizons within Irish category.
What did you make different with the second expression?
So different expression. So we start off with this, and we thought it looked a bit lost on the shelf, and what we wanted to do was to deconstruct your standard Irish whiskies into its individual components, and then give it the Teeling twist. Bring in that unique cask maturation as well. And we were interested in the single grain category. So, because if you think about it, most Irish whiskey sold is blended whiskey. 80% of blends are going to be grain whiskey. So what people actually associate with Irish whiskey is grain whiskey. And we said, well, look, can we do something interesting in there? On our previous distillery, we had a grain whiskey we really liked, but we wanted to do something different again. And what we found was grain whiskey, so made from corn, distilled in a column still. It's like a canvas. It's like a white wall, a white canvas. And if you actually use interesting high quality casks, because traditionally you don't use your best quality cask for grain whiskey, you tend to use the second, third, fourth fill bourbon barrels to do it, just as a blending agent. But if you use high quality, first fill barrels, you can actually produce something quite interesting. And what we discovered was, in particularly, California Cabernet Sauvignon wine barrels. If you fully mature it in that, it produces something truly remarkable and very different. It's a combination of the French oak that it's come from, with that wine influence, with the underlying nuances of the raw materials used, produces a sweet, spicy, fruity, unique, unique whiskey. So forget about being Irish whiskey, it's just a unique whiskey. And we say we're Irish, that's because we're from, but I focus on what the whiskey tastes like, and that if you're a whiskey drinker, you don't have to be an Irish whiskey drinker. If you're a whiskey drinker, this is interesting.
Right.
Yeah. And I think
I do get the Chardonnay.
The color. Yeah. I think the Cab Sauv as well, just in terms of probably adding layers to it with the French oak, has been incredibly interesting for people. And again, the DNA to all the whiskies is 92 proof, non-chill filtered.
Taste that. The wine on
all of the flavors, but nothing added, all of that color from the barrel. And again, it's balance. So the big part of everything that we do, because Irish whiskies can be quite delicate, like Irish people, but you have to approach with care. And I think the maturation piece, we're very close to all of the whiskies. So we'd be constantly testing and tasting just to make sure nothing is overpowering, because that's not really what Irish whiskey is, and it's not what we want. So again, being quite close to a lot of the liquids and quite close to a lot of the whiskies just allows us to take, I suppose, it out of barrel at the right time and what we feel is the most interesting whiskey.
Great. Let's talk about number 3 here.
Number 3, and
so again, we're going down to the deconstruction of your standard Irish whiskey, and the next one was single malt. And
classifications for what Irish whiskey can be: single grain, blend, single malt, peated single malt, single pot still. Yeah.
So our third release on our kind of release schedule was a single malt. And again, so in our small batch, we have grain whiskey and we have malt whiskey, and deconstructing it out. But it's not like single malt is a global category. So it was forever Scotch single malt. Now it's, it can be American single malt, Japanese single malt, it can be whatever. So that creates a wider opportunity, but it also creates a lot of pressure on you to create something that is an interesting single malt, not only an Irish single malt. And what we want to do is produce a fruit forward, quite a distinctive taste experience that was different to other things that are actually out there.
It is different, but I love it, and it's very smooth, especially compared to the two before it. It's a creamier, smoother,
longer as well. Yeah. I think I suppose when we brought you through to the distillery, you saw in the Argan Pine, the fermentation, some of the stuff we were trying to do with the yeast to bring some of those fruit forward flavors. This was very much in our mind as regards to DNA for what we wanted the whiskey profile to be, and then layer on some of the barrels that we use to get that. So, you're in an unusual situation here in Dublin, seeing the sunshine, but it's usually very rainy. So there's lots and lots of lush green, which goes into a lot of the barley. So it tends to be a lot of these fruit forward flavors that I think inherently we wanted to get with this single malt. It's such a tiny category for Irish that we want to do something really unique. And again, harping back to non-chill filtering, interesting barrels, 92 proof. This is the DNA across everything that we do.
And
this came out when?
This came out, it would have been 2015, maybe?
Yeah.
Or 2014?
End of 2014. I remember we delayed it because we didn't think it was right. For about 6 months.
We were trying to produce something that, again, was different. And we have to use a combination of different casks to produce that. So using a range of different fortified wines and wine casks to take subtle aspects of the fruit, to bring it together to produce a bouquet of unique fruit flavors. And then we're moving on to distinctively Irish and Dublin style of whiskey, which is a single pot still.
Yes, the blue one.
The blue one, yeah. Well, the Dublin blue colour, so it was kind of
an easy choice.
It was an easy choice, even though outside of Ireland, do people get it? Probably not. But it's the Dublin GAA colours. So this one obviously is very different. And again, the green unmalted barley brings a unique taste profile. That
a little spicy hit.
Yeah, it's like, and I remember when we were launching, I launched it in the US. I think it was in Texas, and someone described it as a peach cobbler, like spicy peach cobbler. Because it has, that kind of stone fruit notes. It's got that spice. It's got that kind of, sweetness that's there as well.
I would eat a peach cobbler with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you eat a peach cobbler anyway? Yeah. So, but
I'd put this in the peach cobbler.
Yeah. It's a very, uniquely Irish, and we were talking about earlier that for the last 30, 40 years, there's been one distillery making one style of single pot still. We wanted to make something that was unique to us and unique to where we came from, and unique to our distillery. Hence, our mash bill is quite different than other ones. It's more difficult to make, but it's the style that we wanted to represent it. And so our single pot still would taste very different to, let's say, the more well-established single pot stills out there, and that's what we wanted. So,
right.
So again, there's
what's the percentage of
malted 50-50. So,
wow.
Quite an old school traditional Dublin pot still recipe that would have been back when we discussed it, like when Dublin was kind of the epicenter for where a lot of these big distilleries were from. So that would have been the original mash bill for a lot of these pot stills. But again, we wanted to put our own stamp on it, so utilized a range of different casks. So predominantly about 50% ex-bourbon barrels, and then we used some virgin oak and some sherry. And again, non-chill filtering it, but we wanted it to be different for the right reasons. And again, I suppose for us, it was kind of take inspiration from the past, but do something relevant to us. And just from a taste profile, we were really blown away by some of those flavors that come through.
Right.
Really different from the first three that you would have tasted. And
Absolutely.
single pot still as a category is uniquely Irish. So it can't be made anywhere else. And the single pot still heritage was predominantly Dublin. So as a newer generation making whiskey, we were really excited to kind of bring it back. So first new pot still out of Dublin in nearly 100 years. And again, just bringing this liquid and educating people all around the globe as to what the hell is a single pot still, or what is a Dublin style single pot still in 2022.
So the last one here on the right is the Black Pits, I can tell by the peated smell. So I want to skip that and do that last.
Yes.
And then we'll move on to this special edition.
Yeah. So the first extension really within the single pot still world for us.
So is this the same base?
Yeah.
So this is okay.
So same mash bill, but different maturation.
Okay.
So we played around with lots of different fortified wines, nearly 70, 80 different, cask maturation projects. We've learned a lot. We've pushed the boundaries somewhat. So just got the idea that, using different types of casks, wood types.
The nose is completely different.
Totally different.
Yeah.
And again, sourcing unique oak variances. Could we do something interesting? And we've got some chinkapin, American white oak.
And where's the chinkapin from?
From the US.
Yeah, but you know where?
It's
Forget. I know Alex told me, but I can't remember.
somewhere in the Midlands.
Our geography,
America.
but I think it was like the first time ever in an Irish whiskey anyway. The chinkapin has been we had trialed it with a distillery exclusive. Do you remember before? And the response was brilliant.
Yeah.
I think just the name drew people a little bit.
Just so enticing and very unique.
Different.
Yeah, very
And
unique.
we've taken it now and it's grown legs, and we've sourced all these different variants of European oak. So we have Portuguese oak, we have Carpathian, we have Caucasian, we have other Iberian, we have
Wait, how is
Swedish oak.
Caucasian different than white?
It's basically it's in
Can't
Romania. It's basically don't worry about the name. It's what the actual underlying classification is. So it's basically a different style of a French oak.
Okay.
It's not at all like American white oak, which is very distinctive. All the rest of them are a little bit more sandalwood type of influence that's coming through. A lot more tannins, to be honest with you. So you have to be very careful on how long you actually use there. Like the Swedish oak, we're finding that a lot of these ones are better for finishing than full maturation, because otherwise it destroys the underlying flavors. And the trick is obviously that if you're using any interesting cask, is that the whiskey has to come through, and that complements it and evolves it. But like for Portuguese oak, for our second release of this, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. The Portuguese oak is so tannin forward that if you give a full maturation in there, it just destroys the whiskey. It just tastes good.
Yeah.
So how long are you going to finish it in that one?
So we've done a mixture of maturing for 2 years, and then we have to take it out because it's just too overpowering.
Right.
And then we put it into ex-bourbon barrels to kind of let it mellow out a bit. So it's getting that combination of the two, right? So we thought, we just leave them there full, and we'd start tasting it. And went, whoa.
Things are happening.
What the hell?
Here. And I think the interesting thing within Irish whiskey is we can be a little bit more adventurous with the oak. So again, utilizing some of the ability to innovate within Irish probably versus Scotch.
Right.
We can be a little bit more adventurous.
American, we have to use only the one kind. So
yeah, and I think I suppose this project, The Wonders of Wood, so obviously the name, has given us a great opportunity to probably trial some things on a limited basis and bottle at a little higher strength as well.
All right, let's try Jamaican.
So even higher ABV, still lovely, smooth, but
proof.
Of everything I've tasted from your guys' stuff, which isn't everything, but all of these, this is my favorite.
Okay, yeah. Well,
there you go. It's the world's best
single pot still this year. Yeah.
So again, for
It's
us,
very unique.
Yeah. It has that unique combination of the unmalted barley with that full maturation in the chinkapin virgin oak cask. It really does take it to a different level, and look, delighted that it's finally got to the US. So we'll be hitting, hopefully in a limited way, good shelves
Well, I hope I can
across the country.
excuse me, I hope I can get I hope I can get a full bottle because I only got the sample for the interview with
I think
Alex,
it literally has been rolling out since the start of October. So again, it launched here domestically in Ireland around March, and then I think just with all the lovely things happening with logistics, you guys got a little bit later, but right in time for good whiskey weather.
Yes, for sure. All right, let's do this Black Pits.
Well, you've tasted before,
I have.
But again, it's by bringing in the peated malt, it obviously produces something totally different. But because we run the distillery in as a Dublin distillery, we triple distill. It takes the phenols right down, and by using combination of bourbon and ex-Sauternes dessert wine cask, it really kind of extrapolates the underlying fruit notes. So you get a lot of smoky barbecue smoke rather than your medicinal iodine TCB forward kind of Islay style smoke to produce something that is unique within that world, peated single malts, and again exactly what we're trying to achieve, and that has this softness to it, fruit notes to it, but it has that lovely kind of overarching smoke.
It's not too overpowering, because I think as an Irish whiskey it wouldn't make sense. It would be confused.
Now this is actually very smooth for a peated whiskey, and it's got amazing legs. Yeah. And I would actually, now I want to go have barbecue.
Yeah. I think
barbecue pineapple is kind of like, what we like to describe it in terms of has that richness of fruit notes that you get from the Sauternes. It just pulls up those underlying fruit notes that's actually there. And with that lovely kind of, as you say, the barbecue notes rather than, it's not bonfire smoke, it's barbecue style.
Yeah.
And Black Pits as a name, I think people are, where did that come from? There's an area right at the back of the distillery there. That's Black Pits, that you said one of the biggest malting houses here in Dublin, if not in Ireland. And I think it was a real harp of respect back to that era, but to try and do something very different with the liquid. And, we say Irish single malts in general are underdeveloped. Peated Irish single malts, they think you've had too many new makes, when you say it to them, but then you educate them on peat was a big part of the history of Irish whiskey. And this is for us, I suppose, our interpretation of what we think is quite interesting.
So this is the core range, and there will be, unique expressions over the next number of years of different versions.
Fantastic. Well, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure getting to meet you in person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And tasting with you in person. It's been great. And the tour was wonderful. And I'm so excited to have been here. And thank you for having us.
No, delighted to have
you for coming.
Yeah, please come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More whiskey to drink. Yeah.
Oh, of course. Solange.
Sláinte. Cheers. Thank you.
Stay tuned for our next episode, where I visit Waterford Distillery and sit down with head brewer Neil Conway to learn about his whiskey journey. For more information about Teeling Irish Whiskey, visit www.barrelroomchronicles.com for today's show notes. That does it for today's show. To read notes on this episode or learn more about our guests, please visit barrelroomchronicles.com. Want to interact with the show or have questions for our guests? Then ask them on our socials or send us an email through our website. Or better yet, leave us a voicemail on our website, and your recording might be played in our new Speakeasy segment. If you like what you heard, please rate and subscribe to the podcast. If you really liked it and you want to show your support, buy us a whiskey through our Ko-fi site at ko-fi.com/BRC, or become an exclusive member of the Barrel Room Parlor, where you'll get exclusive content not seen anywhere else. If you work in the whiskey or spirits industry, or just have a deep passion for whiskey and want to share your spirits journey, register to be a guest through our website. Last but not least, please enjoy your spirits responsibly. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, Solange.
Barrel Room Chronicles is a production of First Reel Entertainment and is distributed by Spotify for podcasters, and is available on Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Amazon, and wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts.